Well, it's been a little bit since I've made a video. I've taken a bit of time off. It was a big year. This year, my goal was to make over 52 videos. I think I've made about 55 already, which is pretty cool. So, taken me a little bit of time to get back into it. Enough about that. You don't want to hear that, but let's get stuck into the Ireland versus All Blacks game that happened New Zealand time this morning and Friday night in Ireland. And look, Ireland is possibly my second favourite international rugby team. I mean, that started way back mainly because Ireland was not really a threat to the All Blacks. That took them a long time to win their first game, and the Irish are just great people. They and certainly the rugby team has just always been a pretty great team to play against and had a good relationship with the All Blacks typically. But yeah, look, the last 10 games has really turned around. I think since Ireland first won against the All Blacks, it's been very close. About 50-50. I think they've won 5 games each or something like that. And the two of the big moments has been a series win for Ireland in New Zealand, which is absolutely massive. Not only to beat the All Blacks, but now they're winning series in New Zealand. How's that? And then, but the All Blacks got one back over Ireland last year in the World Cup quarterfinal. So pretty evens things up a little bit there, maybe. In terms of this game, Ireland, though, without Tad Furlong and Dan Sheehan in the front row, but they've got the same back line since the World Cup quarterfinal, except Johnny Sexton. So life without Johnny Sexton for Ireland has been a little bit mixed. Winning the game in South Africa was massive, and then this is the first game of the season. So Omani is on the bench as well. That's worth noting. The All Blacks, they were without Beauden Barrett and Cody Taylor. Of course, Ethan de Groot as well. He wasn't selected, I think, performance-related, although he was missed last week because of disciplinary reasons. There was a lot of talk about Rieko Ioane in the lead-up to this game after he was mentioned in Johnny Sexton's book about what he said after that World Cup quarter-final. So there was a lot of heat there. Didn't necessarily eventuate too much into the game, but Rieko was, I guess, a slight target. But he led the haka, and I guess that just added a little bit before the game. Ireland advancing towards the haka as well, and I think that's great stuff. Certainly adding to the spectacle and made for a really good start to the game. So anyway, after kick-off, it was a relatively untidy start. A few kicks and then a knock-on by Will Jordan. And you could tell the conditions were going to play a bit of a part to the game. Of course, there was pretty good pressure by Ireland as well because of after the charge down. And then the first scrum was pretty steady from both teams. Ireland, they then knock it on, and you'd hope that would sort of settle down, but it sort of remained a theme for the game. Geordie Barrett was penalised for retreating for a kick, running slightly off his line there. Nick Berry targeting that a few times during the game. But anyway, Ireland had the first chance to score some points, and they take that opportunity. Ratama then made a pretty good break after a loose ball. Of course, there was a lot of pressure on the ruck, and that was an area from Ireland. That was an area the All Blacks really needed to tidy up because Ratama was struggling to get the ball out cleanly. But the All Blacks were lucky to get a ruck penalty sort of from that play. They then levelled the scores 3-3. Bundy Aki then had a turn at knocking on, and Ireland were in a really good position there. It was shaping nicely for the Irish backs, and he just dropped a sitter. But the All Blacks, they then had a pretty decent period of possession, not really threatening, pretty good defence by Ireland, and the All Blacks were starting to sort of clear better. And one point I noted around this time, Nick Berry wasn't too concerned about tackling player or the tackling player, sort of at the back of a ruck. Obviously, teams have been at the ruck have been trying to pull those players in to try and draw that penalty, but he wasn't really wanting a bar of it. And to be fair, being an ex-halfback, he has pretty good, point of view of when it comes to a ball being playable by the attacking team. So there are good things about that. However, if halfbacks aren't getting in there and getting the ball out, then it just slows the game down anyway. But anyway, that was quite noticeable. Great. Then Satiti had a great ruck turnover, and he had put the All Blacks in really good position and sort of put a bit of pressure on Ireland, and they enforced an offside penalty. The All Blacks kicked into the corner rather than going for the 3 points. Then didn't throw the ball in straight. Moore was sort of first, and he didn't make too many mistakes after that, but the Irish players didn't jump in the line out. Now, I don't know what the rules are, but certainly what the rules were in the Rugby Championship is that if the defending team, or the team not throwing the ball in, if they don't jump then and it's not straight, then it's just play on. But anyway, so that's what happened there, and the All Blacks gave the ball back to Ireland this time. But anyway, then not long after that, the All Blacks managed to get awarded a penalty, and they took the 3 points. I think it was after a high tackle. Oh no, a no arms tackle, I think it was, because they didn't really review that tackle, but that was on Adi Savia. So yeah, the All Blacks took a 6-3 lead. It was pretty scrappy at the ruck. A lot of intensity, a lot of line speed from Ireland, putting a ton of pressure on, and they were certainly playing. Nick Berry was letting a lot play on, which was good. The Irish were certainly playing to the referee and managing that pretty well. The All Blacks, they got penalised at a ruck trying to apply pressure, of not doing it quite as well as Ireland were. Ratama, he got away with the hand in the ruck not long after that, because Ireland were hot in attack. I think that was about, the All Blacks were 5 metres out of their own line at that point. So a few rucks later, the All Blacks won a penalty at the ruck, and that was in the Irish half, and it was pretty important at that point because Ireland were actually warned. I think the penalty had creeped up a little bit, and Nick Berry was just giving Ireland a warning for that. The score then went up to 3-9. The All Blacks took the 3 points. They weren't mucking around. They knew it was going to be a pretty difficult game to score tries. Scott Barrett, he was just hitting the ball at speed. When the All Blacks had the ball, were in attack, and the All Blacks forwards were typically flat-footed against England the week before, I felt, but you could tell that Scott Barrett the All Blacks were really struggling to break the Irish defence, so he had sort of put a bit of effort in running onto the ball, and I think that sort of led to that penalty. So 9-3 at that point. And then the All Blacks, they nearly got a turnover at a ruck, but their own player got in the way. It didn't matter at that point because Geordie Barrett, a few tackles earlier, had made a high tackle, made contact with the head of the Irish player, and that was a yellow card. It remained a yellow, and the score 6-9 at halftime, the Irish taking the points there. And the All Blacks went to the second half with a man down. So that was right on halftime. Possession stats at halftime, 37-63 to the All Blacks, which was quite unreal, really. Of course, Ireland defending relatively well, not letting in a try, but Ireland normally dominate the possession stats. Tackles, 89-34, Ireland making a ton of tackles, and I guess the question mark at that point was were they going to be able to maintain their intensity, being their first game of the season as a unit, and missed tackles, 14-3 to Ireland, of course, covering well and keeping the All Blacks out, but that's a lot of missed tackles. Penalties, 7-4 to Ireland. It was good, I guess, from an All Blacks perspective, because the All Blacks have been giving away a lot of penalties this year. Territory, 45-55. So All Blacks, they were unable to capitalise on their advantage in terms of stats, position, territory. The Irish defence was really good. Ruck pressure was just incredible, and I'd say that the Irish ruck pressure was a whole nother level for what the All Blacks had been used to this year. That's just my take. I thought it was another step up from the Ireland ruck. Pressure was a step up from what England did to the All Blacks last week, and I'd probably even say a step up to what South Africa was doing this year as well. The conditions played a massive part in the number of errors. I think it was 4-6 at halftime. The All Blacks with slightly more questions for the second half were to how are the All Blacks going to handle playing the first 10 minutes with a man down. So anyway, another penalty. So second half, another penalty against the All Blacks for changing line while retrieving a kick. So that was their second. I think Ireland had one in the first half. The All Blacks, they managed the maul well. I think it was not far from the All Blacks line, but Ireland pressure then forced the All Blacks back into their own goal, and Ireland were awarded a 5-metre scrum. Finally, the Irish had some possession in the All Blacks 22, which was not... it didn't happen a lot in the first half, and there was a good try by Josh van der Fleer. 14-9, Ireland go ahead, and you just felt like, okay, maybe there was a momentum shift here. In particular, certainly the All Blacks were a man down, so the Irish took that opportunity well. The All Blacks, they should not have gone for a quick throw. I think after kick-off, Ireland kicked deep into the All Blacks half, went out. Will Jordan passed into Damien McKenzie. They shouldn't have gone for that quick throw in that time. They took too long anyway, a bit too casual about it. But I think one of the other things was that McKenzie and Jordan were really struggling to clear throughout the game. That was a key for me. So I think the All Blacks, though, after that quick throw, they got a lucky penalty to get out of trouble, and that was unfortunate for Ireland, really. Key moments, just a couple of penalties that Ireland gave away at really key moments. Omoa earned a good ruck turnover penalty, and in the Irish half, not long after that, and then Damien McKenzie went for the 3 points. The ball fell off the tee, so there was drama all over the place. But anyway, so... there was still enough time for Mick. He didn't soak up the whole minute that he was allocated and managed to kick that penalty. But anyway, so McKenzie had a run after that kickoff, but there was just too much pressure again, and the All Blacks knocked it on. Geordie Barrett was now back at that point, but yeah, just another handling error for the All Blacks. Just at key moments, the All Blacks gained a penalty at around 48 metres. So McKenzie did have a crack at that. It was out in front, but it hit the post, and then the Irish cleared Mark Talia. Just bad decisions here. There was still a few bad decisions made by the All Blacks, but Mark Talia went for a run. That was fine. I think they were still in Ireland's half, but he went towards the sideline when he should have cut back in, and then he knocked it on as he was getting dragged out. So anyway... The All Blacks reserve props made impact at that scrum, and they earned a scrum penalty. 13-15, the All Blacks had taken the lead with less than 20 minutes to go. Typically, the All Blacks had struggled in the last 20 minutes this year, but anyway, so handling error then hurt the Irish again, another handling error. The All Blacks, they had a crack down the right off that scrum, and D-Mac, I guess, he was running a bit more. He could pretty much tell the Irish had their line speed had slowed, and I think the All Blacks were really, really trying to make the most of the opportunity of having a bit more time with the ball. All Blacks earning another penalty, going out to 13-18. The All Blacks kept that going. They ran Ireland backwards and forwards, side to side, and eventually they scored in the corner through Will Jordan with a pretty decent overlap, pushing the score out to 13-23. The misconversion by Damien McKenzie. And yeah, look, I just think the big thing there was Damien McKenzie was running the show very well. So just to round out the last 10 minutes, the Irish, they kept kicking to Geordie Barrett on kickoffs. I couldn't believe that. He just handled those perfectly all game. Frawley had a shocker. He was the hero in South Africa and was not a little bit of the villain. I felt sorry for him, but he made a second handling error. The All Blacks, they just weren't they had the ball after that scrum. They just weren't going anywhere though. And then Will Jordan kicked it, which was really strange in that time. I guess they weren't making any ground, and I guess he thought, well, let's just keep that territory game going and dominating that. But he kicked it straight to James Lowe, who then put in one of the most unbelievable kicks you could see and earned a 50-22 from... He kicked it from almost his own 22. Ireland, they have their chance to get back into the game, 10 points behind. Sideways attack, though, just not really been able to get any go forward, and then Ardie Savea timed his turnover to perfection at the ruck and won a penalty. And look, those Irish wingers, they were really handy, but yeah, look, and did some really good things. It was worth sort of noting, but look, the Irish just weren't able to threaten the All Blacks there and pretty much more just over the last 20 minutes. So the final score, 23-13, the All Blacks won, beating the number one ranked team in the world. Tackles 145-82. The Irish making a lot more tackles, and that was telling. They just looked fatigued towards the end, being their first game as well. The missed tackles 29-13, and that's not typical for Ireland. Line breaks 1 to Ireland, 11 to the All Blacks. Penalties conceded 2 Turnovers conceded 13-10. That was relatively even, but I think that the Irish made a few more handling errors than what would be typical. The conditions playing their part, and they were at key moments. Penalties 13-5. 5 penalties, 1 penalty against the All Blacks in the second half. That is massive for the All Blacks. It just has been unheard of this year. Territory was pretty even by the end. Possession was 41% to 59% in the All Blacks. They dominated possession, and you got to have the ball to win rugby games on the most part. I know that a lot of the style of Test rugby these days has been trying to play without the ball and put that pressure on, but and it's worked against the All Blacks plenty of times, but certainly didn't work this time. But yeah, look, for the Irish, I'd start by saying this was an average or below average performance by them, not very typical, and I think mainly a reflection of they've been the first game of the season and players returning from injury, a couple of players out, too many tackles really. I think they just got fatigued by tackling too much. The All Blacks ran them ran them ragged. Looked like the Irish just ran out of gas, and I think they just had too many handling errors, penalties, and missed tackles. I think those were the 3 key stats that the Irish just did not manage very well. Great pressure and defence in the first half, particularly at the ruck. I think the All Blacks worked that out as they went, but certainly it took them a while, and the Irish were putting a ton of pressure on them, and they were looking really good, but they just the Irish could not maintain that energy and effort. Life without Sexton's been mixed, as I said right at the top of this video, but certainly won't be. The Irish won't be happy for losing the first time in 19 games, I think, at Aviva Stadium, something like that, some stat like that. Nick Berry, in terms of refereeing, he went pretty well, I thought. He was clear with his communication, pretty consistent. He really focused on, players going offline when they're retreating for kicks. I think both teams got caught out and were a bit surprised by that. Maybe that's something the referees are really focusing on. Nick Berry wasn't too interested if players were the tackling player was sort of hanging around at the ruck if the ball could still be accessed. But I thought Nick Berry let the game flow pretty well, in my opinion. Then let's go to the winners, the All Blacks. They of course beat the number one team in the world. This performance by the All Blacks was better from last week. They dominated most areas of the game, which for me wasn't sort of expected. They did win by 10 points, which is whatever. I felt that the performance was better than that, if I'm honest. I felt that it was a comfortable win, and to be fair, I thought that the All Blacks were probably another try better than that. I think they did very well without Cody Taylor, in particular Asofa Omua. He was very strong in every area, and again, he played massive minutes last week, playing 75, this week playing 79. And he hadn't played big test match minutes this year, and his performance was topped nicely with that try assist at the 70th minute out in the back line, and I think the ball hit the ground before he had to sort of just regather and you still got to nail that pass, and it was quite a wide pass, and he would have been knackered by that point. And Damien McKenzie, he won man of the match and led the team very well. He goal kicked very well and kept the pressure on on the scoreboard. But the moment that stood out for me from Damien McKenzie was how he sensed Ireland slowing and just said, let's keep the ball in hand, pass it around quite a bit, let's put some really, really good pressure on while we've got the ball. He sped the game up, and the All Blacks were able to take advantage and seal the game. He's still got to work on clearing the ball when the All Blacks are in trouble. But he did handle the Irish line speed well, which has been one thing that he prefers to have more time, and I guess that time came to him later in the game. The scrum track for the All Blacks was tracking pretty well. It performed admirably against both England and Ireland, and I think there's some good signs there, and I liked how the reserve props came on again and made an impact this week for the All Blacks, earning 1 or 2 penalties at least. And if you had asked me before the England game what would be a good result for these two games for the All Blacks, I would have said winning 1 would have been a good result. Look, the All Blacks have done 2 now. That is very impressive. They've ticked them both off, and they're certainly heading in the right direction. So the All Blacks versus Ireland rivalry still very strong, and there's a lot of respect between both of these teams. So I look forward to the next one. For the All Blacks, they play France next week with Anton Dupont back, so that's going to be a massive game. And Ireland, they face Argentina next week. So, if you have watched till this point, thank you so much. I enjoyed that game. I hope you did. It wasn't the most expensive game. It was quite clinical. I guess the weather dictated that a little bit. But the All Blacks deserved winners, in my opinion. The Irish have plenty to work on. So, we'll see if they can bounce back from that. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.